Welcome to the Courage to Live podcast. My name is Josh Bitsko, and I'm a retired police captain with 24 years of experience out of Las Vegas. Currently, I travel the country and I teach people about leadership, resilience, and courage. Joined today by my co host and wife, Jenna.
Hi.
So, in our last podcast, we talked about fear. And the fear we talked about in that one was, mortal fear of, getting hurt or getting shot, car accidents, even we talked about, and, how that can impact you and how to mitigate those responses. And so today's podcast, we're going to talk about fear in your profession. But before we get there, another thing that I was feeling a lot of fear was the Dodgers being in the World Series. Now I can say the three-time world champion Dodgers since I've been really watching it. And I felt a lot of fear during that series.
Yeah, I think you should, if you can, for the YouTube video, put the picture of you with your hat over your face that was there for about 50% of Game 7.
Well, yeah, I mean, I really just didn't want to watch them strike out. So I put the hat over my face, and if I heard the bat connect, I'd like peek.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, it was a good series. I'm a huge Dodgers fan. I know we've talked about it on other podcasts, and I'm happy they won. And I'm also a little happy it's over because it was really stressful.
I think Dodgers fans are the only ones that are happy that they won, and everyone else is very upset at the evil empire of baseball.
Yes. And you know what? They hate us because they ain't us. And now we get to move on to basketball season, which I know you're a big fan of.
Yes, Michigan State, my favorite basketball team. No, I'm not from Michigan, but they're my favorite team. And so they have their first game tonight against Colgate, who Josh is a very big fan of.
I am because, well, you can tell the story.
So I do March Madness brackets, and the first year that we got together, or were we friends? I don't know. We might have just been friends, but he filled out a bracket and joined our pool, and he put Colgate going really far. And I made a lot of fun of him. And that year they happened to have, not a Cinderella story, but they went pretty far. I can't remember how far they got. It was pretty far though.
Maybe the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
And I remember, because I had not watched college basketball. Like I kind of followed basketball because my brother really liked basketball and I wanted something to talk to him about, but I wasn't a huge fan. And when she's like, "Hey, you want to fill out this bracket?" I'm like, "Sure." And I kept telling her, because I did beat her that year, points wise in the bracket.
No.
Well, talk about being honest here. And I remember I kept telling her, "Hey, I did hours of research on this." Whereas she watched like every game.
So annoying because he didn't even watch basketball, and he just went on the internet and filled out a bracket and somehow beat me. But yet, college basketball, when it starts, it doesn't matter what game. I have a game on.
Yes.
At all times, because I'm trying to memorize for when March Madness season comes around, who won, who lost, but, did they play well? Did they play a ranked team? Did they beat a ranked team? I try to remember all of that. And so that was really annoying.
And I just pick on vibes alone.
Picks on team mascot.
I do think you do pick with your heart a little bit too.
I do. It's a problem.
Yes. So back on the subject of fear. Now, fear in your career is a little different than mortal fear. It can have a lot of the same physiological effects, right? Your heart rate goes up and you're breathing faster. But really it's more fear of there's a couple different ways it can come out. It's fear of failure or fear of a loss of identity, fear of making mistakes. And
fear of how others perceive you.
Yeah. I mean, when I was a police officer, I wanted to be the best police officer on the department. And I put a lot of pressure on myself. And I did too, because my dad was on the police department. He was well respected. And so, I had my family name to uphold. And the problem with that is because I wanted to be perfect. And I didn't want to allow myself to make mistakes. So when I would go on a big call, like maybe a complicated call where, a lot of arrests are pretty black and white, but there's sometimes it's take some investigation and pick the charge that fits the best. And I remember laying in bed at night thinking about a call I had hours ago, like, did I make the right call on that? And that some of that is natural, but when you let that fear affect you so much that it stops you from making decisions, that can be really difficult.
Well, and I think an important element to point out with that is the fear of failure really can only exist if you care about what you're doing, right?
Well, yeah, and it comes down to kind of changing that relationship with that emotion, because yes, if you have that fear of failure because you want to be the best, whatever it is you do, whether the cop, first responder, dentist, doctor, whatever it is that you do for a living, and you want to be the best at that. Well, it's because you care, right? I mean, we've all worked around people that really just didn't care, and they just kind of they weren't stressed, they weren't.
Yeah, what's that like?
No doubt. And it's so knowing, I mean, that's the first little indicator. I'm feeling this, but why am I feeling this emotion right now? It's because I care so much. And later in the podcast we'll talk about how to mitigate some of these responses, the body's response, how to regulate yourself around those emotions, or around fear specifically. But I mean, knowing that I'm doing this because I care and I want to be good at my job. And I'll tell you, the best people I worked around cared, right? You need to really care about what you're doing and care about, how you perform. And there's things that can lead into a better performance because of just caring alone.
Yes, but I think when it comes to that fear of failure, yes, it can only exist if you care. But again, all of these different kinds of fear that you can feel, that we're going to talk about a couple examples, all of it can impact your decision making, right? It can impact whether you promote, it can impact whether you change jobs, it can impact a lot of different areas in your career. So that's our point of the podcast today, is how to mitigate those emotions so that fear doesn't impact you negatively, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that people have a common misconception that fear, whatever it is, people just want to run away or remove themselves from the situation. But more often than not, what happens is people freeze. And no matter where you're working, freezing and indecision is not a good thing. So,
Especially in leadership.
especially in leadership, because all eyes are on you, right? Yeah. And you can then, like you said, not make a decision or make the wrong decision because you're allowing that very intense emotion to make the decision for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so because I'm feeling fear and it's such a all-encompassing emotion, you want it to go away. So you're just going to make the quick decision and not make necessarily the right decision.
Or make no decision at all.
Which is more often than not what happens, right? Is no decision at all. But there are other types of fear. It's not just about the big decisions that happen. It can also be, that fear of, do I take this promotional test? Mm-hmm. Or do I go in and talk to my boss because, maybe my boss or another supervisor at my company's leaving and I think I'm a good fit for that. And I want to put in for that. And again, that fear can cause inaction. I've seen it time and time again. So in the police department, if you want to promote, say, to sergeant, lieutenant, captain, it's a process. Like, you have to it starts with a written test, which is like 100 questions long. And a lot of people fail out at that portion because they're not necessarily putting the time in to study for that. But then it's an assessment center where you have to get up in front of people and either give a presentation of some sort or, act through a scenario. And there's a lot of fear surrounding that. Twofold. Number one, just the process alone can be scary. But the other part of that fear is, what if I don't get it? And I'm not willing to take that risk. So there are, obviously bad risk behaviors in life, like taking super risky, whether in your professional or personal life. But then there's healthy risk, like, okay, I'm going to take this promotional test, and the risk there is, it's going to hurt my ego, because we all have ego. I know I have one. or I'm not going to get that promotion. The people around me are going to know that I took it and failed. And there's that. But then the positive is I'm going to move on to this next phase of my career and maybe grow as a leader and have more responsibility, more financial security, and that comes with that. So that there's a risk there. And I think oftentimes, you know, fear can cause us to be more risk averse and not really taking on, the challenges that we I think when we all started off, we wanted to take on.
Well, I think too, not taking risks, not putting yourself out there in any kind of way also prevents you from looking bad in front of your coworkers or your peers, or right. So it's, if you never put yourself out there, then you don't risk looking inept or stupid, and which is a whole other kind of fear, right? Like fear of how others are going to perceive you. And I saw that a lot working at the police department. You People didn't want to give presentations. I mean, who does? Nobody wants to do that, but people would actively avoid giving presentations or, doing any kind of new initiative because they didn't want to, one, fail. They didn't want other people to perceive them as stupid, or why are they doing it, cringy? Like, right. So then if you just stay in the background, if you stay in the shadows, then nobody can think you're stupid. Nobody can think you're a failure if you're just kind of floating along. Right.
Yeah. Some people, the goal is to blend in.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to take those risks. But you touched on it. I mean, fear of how others perceive you, like that can be a very big either motivator or something that stops action because, yeah, I care what people think. And we all know those people that say, oh, I don't care what people think.
Yes, you do.
Yes, you do.
Yes, you do.
And, now it can be a spectrum. Like I know that at times I was rather polarizing on the police department.
I think only like one or two times were you very polarizing.
Because I would say what I thought, or make what I thought was the right decision, even if it was going to upset people. But I always still kind of cared what people thought of me.
Yeah.
And there's times that I would hear, oh, this person really doesn't like you, and I would ew, like I don't like that, even if I completely understood why they didn't. So that can be a huge, either it can stop you from continually putting yourself out there. Like you said, giving a presentation. Both of us, how many presentations do we give in front of, in action, which is like the big meeting with all the leadership of the whole department. And, you know that there are people that are going to talk good and bad about your presentation.
Well, and so I grew up in a church that you are constantly up there speaking in front of the whole congregation from the time you're a child. So public speaking was not something that was foreign to me. But the very first time I had to do a presentation at Metro, I was actually with you. And I don't know, it was like 30 minutes before I was supposed to give this presentation, I just started sobbing.
Yeah.
Like could not control myself. And it was the fear of exactly everything we're talking about, that that people were going to think I didn't know what I was talking about, that people were going to think I was stupid, that I wasn't going to be able to answer their questions, that, I'm standing in front of a room full of men at the police department, and I'm this woman, and I'm like, what, this whole room is just going to be staring at the one female in here, and like, why are they going to care what I have to say? Listen, everyone, as a leader on the police department, I did not want to be, I didn't want to be seen for like, oh, because she's a woman. I wanted to be viewed by my merits. I wanted people to view me and listen to what I had to say and think what I said was credible, not because I was a woman, but because I had earned it. Right. So like, it was very intimidating to stand in front of this room full of men that knew nothing about me. And so I, like, that fear was very real in that moment. I got myself together and I gave the presentation. I did all right. I didn't do great, but I did it.
Well, you did
And
well, but that's it. So you felt fear. You could have asked me to give the presentation because it was something we had kind of worked on together at the point,
Mhm.
but you didn't. And you went up and gave that presentation. And then you gave like 20 more on the same subject around the agency.
Yeah.
So, I mean, really, it's because you were willing to not allow the fear to make that decision for you. And if you had asked me, I probably would have said, no, you're doing it. Let's go.
Yeah. What are you talking about? You could have asked me and I would have done it. No way.
Well, yeah, but you didn't know if I would have or not.
No, I absolutely did. Speaking of polarizing.
It was what's best for you in that moment.
Yeah.
But, that's a perfect example though. And your impact on the agency grew. And guess what? Your fears in that are still fears that I have. And I've been teaching cops for decades now. I travel the country and I teach, I've taught at the White House, I've taught at rooms of 1,500 people, police leaders all across Canada or the US. And so I've done it and I still have those little thoughts. What if someone asks me a question I don't know the answer to? Now they're less because I've done it so much, but the first couple times that's a completely natural feeling. And you can let that fear paralyze you and stop you. And, I had almost a failure is the first class I ever taught when I was like 23 years old on the police department. I got into a critical incident the night before I was supposed to teach report writing the next morning. And I remember calling my dad. I'm like, hey, I was out a couple hours late and I was just using these as excuses to not go teach the class because I was petrified to teach report writing to cops that were already working the streets who probably were only taking the class because they needed the training hours, not that they wanted to learn how to write reports. He's like, nope, you said you're going to do it. You're going to do it. Get out there and teach the class. And, so I did. But all of those emotions and feelings are completely natural. But had I not taught that class, I probably would have walked away from teaching as a police officer in general. And maybe we wouldn't be doing what we're doing today because of that one decision. Had I let fear make that decision for me, it could have changed the course of my entire professional life.
Mhm.
And so because, I think a presentation like that is the epitome of what other people think. But even there's eyes on you in any workplace. Like, oh, he's the guy that treats customers crappy. Or, oh, he that guy can sell catch up to a guy in white gloves. He's a great salesman. Like we care how people perceive us. And so I think that, understanding that about yourself, that you do care what people think, but still doing the hard thing, still pushing through the fear and doing it, you learn a lot about yourself through that process.
Yeah. And I mean, I think too, one more example that we haven't given yet is a fear of consequences, right? So I guess you could probably lump that in with a fear of wrong decision, fear of failure, but fear of being fired, fear of being demoted, fear of, somehow screwing something up so big that there's massive consequences.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you think about it, like I loved policing. I do think that at times it's more than a job. It's more than just a career. Like it is, a lot of people, like for me, I got into policing for a bunch of reasons, but because I wanted to prove something to myself, but also, that I truly wanted to help people in my community. And so it's heavy on you when you think, if I'm going to make this mistake, each one of the things we talked about, how people perceive me, that's a consequence. I could lose my job if the mistake is big enough. And that has a whole host of effects, right? Am I going to get, lose financial security? What am I going to do? All I know how to be is this, what I'm doing right now in this moment. I don't want to go look for another job. And will I, if I lost this job? There's so many that our brains will just get so caught in the what ifs because of those fear of those consequences. And then lastly, there's your own identity. Like that if I identify as this and that I'm good at this and this is what I always wanted to do, or I'm a good salesperson, I'm good, whatever your job is, and then you make a mistake that's fatal enough that you are going to lose that and have some serious consequences, then that can really damage your own identity too. And So, and these are all things that go through our heads, maybe not even consciously. When you're just feeling that emotion, I say it all the time when I teach class. It's one of the good things about therapy is you learn about a lot about yourself, and you learn to identify the emotions you're feeling, because for so long, and still often at times, it's I just feel good or bad. I don't really know why. Like, but knowing, okay, I'm feeling this fear, diving down because I've done the work with a professional. Okay, why am I feeling this? Oh, I'm going to get up and speak, and I'm worried that these people are going to think this about me. And I can do a really valid, risk reward process in my head because I have put in the work and I understand what I'm feeling. And now I can delve into the why rather than I just feel this intense emotion and I'm going to freeze up because, I don't know what to do. And I want this feeling to stop. And sometimes getting that feeling to stop is not doing the scary thing.
Mm-hmm. Which actually patterns your brain. If you're scared to do something and you don't, so let's take my presentation example, right? So let's say I had not gotten up and done the presentation. Well, the next time that I was presented with having to give a presentation, it actually would have been scarier because I gave myself that comfort in the moment, right? That I didn't do the scary thing. So I trained my brain that that was really scary and I didn't do it. And so then the next time when you go to do that thing, that exact same thing, it's actually going to be way scarier to do it because you've trained your brain that this is a very, very scary thing than had you just done it in the first place.
Well, yeah, it's that you're basically rewarding yourself for letting fear make that choice.
Right.
And the next time you're doing it, you're not only fighting the what you were scared about in the first place, but then internally too. Well, last time I couldn't even do it. And so that makes it even more difficult. And I've seen that mirrored in so many people, including myself, throughout my career. I mean, there's several times that I wanted to, not because it was dangerous, but I was afraid to fail, that I wanted to run away. There were times working with SWAT with my police dog, and I have a use of force tool with the brain and can make me look dumb even if I did everything right. So sometimes it was like, oh, maybe I don't want to work the front. Maybe I don't want to send my dog past the SWAT team because he could fail and I'm gonna look dumb. And then all the SWAT team and all the other canine handlers and everyone's gonna know my dog failed on this. And so I've had that same poll, like, no, I'll just work the back. The back is basically someone runs out and you just send the dog at him and bite him or, tell him to stop or whatever it is. So yeah, you're rewarding yourself because you don't want to do that. And then the next time it almost, that action has more mystique about it because it's this big thing rather than breaking it up into small things on how to do a presentation. It's this big thing that you failed last time.
Mhm.
So,
Well, I mean, it's if you get bucked off a horse, getting back on immediately, right? It's same concept because if not, that horse is going to be terrifying to you for the rest of your life.
Rest of your life.
And I feel like our business is a good example of literally every single one of these fears that we just talked about. And so I want to kind of share a little bit of that story and then talk about how we mitigated those fears and how everybody can just maybe some tools that people can use during their, professional lives to help mitigate some of these fears that we've talked about today.
Well, yeah, right before I retired, we started Bitsco Consulting, and we had these ideas and plans about how we can teach, um, basically police officers around the country how to mitigate these difficult emotions in the moment. And neither of us had any idea how to start or run a business, how to market, even how to do all the paperwork associated with when you do get hired. And it was the unknown of that. I mean, everything we talked about was part of it,
Yeah.
right? It's the fear of failure, the lack of financial security when you own your own business. If you're not getting hired, you're not getting paid. Um, what other people would think about it, because we both came from a large agency of 6,000 people, all these peers. And I would be lying if I didn't say that even doing a podcast, people are going to think it's, cringy or whatever, because, people that we've known for years and years are listening to it or sending around clips or all of these different emotions that come along with it. And there's also this very intense fear of failure. It's we put our heart and soul into this business, and we work 12, 13-hour days pretty much every day to make it successful. And it's hard and it's scary. I mean, still we've had success and we've had some consistency, but you always have those thoughts when laying in bed at night. Well, what if we don't get any bookings for next month or the beginning of next
Oh,
year?
that's putting it mildly. I think I cry at least once a week from fear of failure in this business. And that was one of the hardest parts of starting this podcast, of starting this business, was knowing, not thinking, knowing that we were going to be the subject of memes that would be sent around the department, that we would be, everybody would talk about how cringy we are and who do they think they are. Imposter syndrome was very real with this business and this podcast for a long time. And that's hard not to feel those big emotions about it, because at the base level, do I care what people think of me? No. But do I care what people think of me? Yes. Like it's a double-edged sword, right? And so I didn't want this business to fail. I didn't want this podcast, social media, all of the things that wrap up this business. Of course I don't want it to fail. Of course I don't want to look stupid. Of course I don't want to be made fun of. But I think for me and for both of us, this is going to sound really stupid, but it had to be, all the decisions we've had to make to push forward. We've literally just like the Nike slogan, just do it. Literally, we've had to just do it. And there's a lot of tears. There's a lot of, at least on my part, there's a lot of tears. There's a lot of emotions, big feelings.
Big feelings.
But part of how we've mitigated, and trust me, we've had our failures with this business. We have had some really big misses. We've put a lot of work in for very little reward sometimes. But I can honestly say that just doing it and continually having forward action has probably been the number one thing that has gotten us to this point.
Well, for me, and I probably said this enough to where you roll your eyes when I say it, but you and I work too hard for it to fail. Like it is a grind, but we have so much passion for it. It doesn't mean we both love everything that we do with this business. We both have parts that it's like, okay, I got to go do this for the next 3 hours that I'm not loving. But at the same time, it's, yeah, you just doing it, just putting in the work and realizing that you're never going to be ready. And I did it for my faithful listeners, a short podcast on being ready as a choice, not a state of being. So knowing that, what, we can do this, but even today, even though the business has grown year by year, almost doubled, we still, that fear is still present.
Mhm.
But rather than let it stop what we're doing, we continue to push forward, continue to make mistakes. We continue to learn from the mistakes. And, ultimately, like I said, the path of what we thought we were going to do with this business and where we're ending up are so completely different. And I don't say end up, but where we're at right now. But because we're willing to take those risks, not let the fear make the decision for us, and continue pushing forward, we are continuing to grow, continuing to find success. But it's stressful. And there's a lot of fear that's on board with it pretty much all the time.
Mhm. Well, and I think too, something that can help people no matter what your career, whether that's starting a business, whether you are a dentist, whether you're in marketing, whatever you are, is constantly, training so that you can be the best that you can absolutely be and be a subject matter expert in your field. Because I think that has also helped us exponentially, because there's nobody out there that does what you do. There's nobody out there that does what I do. And so I think constantly training and educating yourself and bettering yourself so that you are the expert in your field helps you build confidence so that when that fear does come up, when it's you need to go in and ask for a promotion or a raise or whatever, you're the expert in your field. So it's a lot harder for them to deny, right? And it gives you that boost of confidence as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, put in a couple of things that you said there is putting in the time to become that expert in your field. And if you don't know how to do that, finding people that do. And that's such a huge part of what both of us did in our professional career before this and now with this business. And so learning and growing, and think of the people in our lives that we've tapped into to even learn and grow this business. We didn't think that we had all the answers, but there's so many different things that people that we reached out to, even, Colin, who owns Fuku Burger here in Las Vegas, who's, grown from having a food truck to several brick and mortar restaurants, including one at Allegiant Stadium. I met with him right at the onset. Like, what am I doing? And, he gave me a book, The Go Giver. He's like, read this book. It's kind of helped me through my business. But then, we have a collection of people that we know that we can call because we know what we don't know at times. And we've tried to learn and grow. We have somebody that helps us with marketing. We have somebody that, the people that, because I've taught around the country and built these relationships with people that are doing similar things that we are, that we have other people that we can tap into to become an expert in our field. We had the knowledge of like wellness and policing and, all of the things that the core foundation of our business, but putting it into action, knowing that the answers are out there, whether it's through books, whether it's, through the internet, whether it's through people that are experts in the field. But that's helped us so much. And because what comes with that is confidence. It's why I say we work too hard for this to fail. I am confident, not just in, the market and the business and all of that, but I'm confident in us. I have confidence in us. And even when I'm feeling that fear, even when I'm feeling like, gosh, it'd be so much easier just to go get a different job. Just, it'd be so easy just to, hop on LinkedIn or ZipRecruiter or whatever it is and find a different job. Even when I'm feeling that, I have confidence in what we do and the work ethic and the willingness to learn and willingness to learn from people around us. And how also that helped with the fear is we've created a group of people that also understand, and we have almost a community of people that we can vent to. I can talk to about this is really scary because of this, and they coming from their backgrounds and their history. Well, yeah, of course it's scary. I felt the same thing too, starting my business, but ultimately, I was able to find success through these things.
Well, and I think too, so you get the training, you get the education, right? You build the confidence. Part of what comes along with that confidence is the thing that I struggle the most with, which is putting yourself out there. And like we talked about earlier, taking the risks. You might look cringy. You might think you're going to look stupid, right? You might know that there's going to be memes made of you and sent around the department. I mean, but being willing to take those risks, being willing to put yourself out there, being willing to give the presentation, being willing to sign up to manage the extra event or direct the event for the first time, being willing to do those things and put yourself in those situations. Yes, you might fail, but you're also going to learn, and you're also going to not only have the confidence, but show people that you're willing to fail. You're willing to do it. When I promoted at Metro, it was the interview process. I was the best person for the job. I was the most qualified. I was all of the above. But the person doing the interview told me that the only reason I got the job was because I had volunteered to when one of the managers was sick or on FMLA or having a baby or whatever, I always volunteered to be acting manager. I was always the first one to say I want it. And mind you, I was a single mom with 3 little tiny kids at the time. But I found people that would help me with the kids so that I could work those extra shifts, so that I could change my schedule. I did whatever I needed to do to put myself in a situation that was very cringy for me, because I knew that I didn't know everything. I didn't know how to be a manager. I didn't know how to be a leader, but I was willing to put myself in that scenario and look stupid and look cringy and fail, because I knew that long term that was going to get me where I needed to go. And so he told me in the interview, because I brought that up in my interview, that I was the only one that ever volunteered to be acting manager. And that's why I deserved, along with my qualifications, that's why I deserved to be promoted. And he said that was the only reason that I got promoted, because I had done that. And so being willing to put yourself in those scenarios that may be really hard in the moment, but you know is going to pay off down the road, is also, I think, huge.
Well, it comes down to, again, taking those risks.
Yeah.
And having faith in yourself that even if it's hard, even if I don't have the answers, even though I'm feeling that imposter syndrome, I'm going to push through. I'm going to persevere and I'm going to do it. And ultimately that's, really the one of the last ways to, at least when it comes to the decision making portion of this, is to um, have faith in yourself, be willing to take a risk, and be willing to fail, because you learn by failing. I had a long career where I made so many mistakes, but I learned from it and try not to make the same mistake twice, rather than just kind of bounce through my career and not care, not feel not feel fear, but make the same mistake over and over again because I just didn't care. No, I cared and I learned from it.
Can you think of any other ways to help mitigate that fear?
Well, I think that especially when you don't have a lot of time to make the decision, and most of the time when we're talking about career, you do, right? It's not the life or death. But when you don't have a lot of time, it really comes down to that learning to emotionally regulate yourself. The first key, right, is to first know what I'm feeling in this moment, which I talked about earlier, like through therapy, knowing yourself, knowing I'm feeling fear, understanding the why of it, so you can do that risk reward in your head. But then ultimately coming to grips with, I'm feeling this emotion because I care. That doesn't mean I'm weak. It doesn't mean I can't do it. It just means that I care, and letting go of the shame surrounding it and continue to push forward. As you said, keep persevering through it. And, when I teach first responders, I have a whole process for this in the class, but, I talk about it in the book also, The Courage to Live. But, ultimately letting go of the shame surrounding the emotion, you're going to feel it, but continually to move forward by breaking it up into small pieces of what you have to do to get the job done. That's really the last step of everything that we've talked about, but learning that about yourself to regulate those emotions, because you can. You don't always, or most of the time, you have zero control about how you feel over something that's happening. You 100% of the time have control over how you act. Like your example, exactly. I was super nervous. I was really scared about giving this presentation in a room full of cops that I don't know. But you had the power to either run away or act and do it. And you did. And then you got better from it. And that's ultimately how you can, again, persevere through, keep going, moving forward, and make that decision. There's a difference between how you feel about something and how you act. And you always can control this. Well, thank you for listening. If you enjoy the podcast, please share it with a friend, leave a review, or subscribe. If you like what we talked about, I talk about a whole lot more in the book, The Courage to Live. It's on Amazon. You have to search The Courage to Live by Josh Bitsko is the easiest way to get it to come up. And I really appreciate you spending time with me today.
Thank you.